Carl.
Dave. Yeah, we were chatting before we jumped on here. We had talked like 3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't
And
know.
and neither of us can remember where or about what.
Um, it, it, we did talk about the flat Earth.
Of course, of course.
We did talk about that.
All right, so go ahead. Continue where you were.
Okay, so I was watching your great interview with Greg Reese, and you had mentioned that you have an interest in history, and as a professional historian with 48 years of my full attention for the on the empire, I thought that we should talk, and that would be useful for our audience members to be able to get a perspective. And just so you know, too, since 2020, I've been involved with Need to Know News. Professor Jim Fetzer was the host of the show, and I think for the last 2 years now, I've been doing that 3 times a week. And on one of our weekly shows, we often feature the evidence for a flat Earth. And
Now,
that,
now help me out here. I love Jim Fetzer. I have all of his books that'll either be worth millions of dollars or get me put in jail. Okay, for owning them. And he's an OG guy. He's the one that outed me. By the way, I was like behind the scenes. Nobody knew my name. Then he wrote an article. Dave Weiss, boom. 9/11, boom, right? All of this stuff. And he's the one that made me come out of the closet, which is a really good thing. So, but we had an interview with him about flat Earth, and it didn't go well for him. How's he doing now with the flat Earth topic? Is he listening? Is he accepting it?
no, no,
No,
no.
not at
You
all.
know, people have blind spots, Dave, and
Yeah,
Jim Fetzer is in my personal human being Hall of Fame. And
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and some guys just aren't open to certain topics.
Yeah,
And
and this is one. I think I titled the show "You Can You Teach an Old Dog a New Trick?" And we learned not in this case, but again, I never throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's certain people that just are geniuses on stuff, and they just miss something else. Leave that, take the good. That's it. So
exactly.
interesting. Good. Continue. Sorry.
So I had sent you and invited you to watch if we could do a screen share and I could just show the audience the idea of history in that been lied to about the shape of the Earth. And for me, I keep hammering on the one simple point is that the objects visible on the horizon refute. And I am, as a retired public school teacher, I'm also credentialed in mathematics, so I'm a professional mathematician, but you don't have to be one. But the objects visible on the horizon refute the official size and shape of Earth. End of story. We do not live on a ball of the given size. And anybody who wants to make that argument will not be able to argue their way out of it.
No, you can't. And the argument that anybody that believes in the globe, either the people that are just naive, they're like, well, I can't see the bottom half of that building, you know, but you shouldn't be able to see any of the building, right? So it's not Earth curve, unless, of course, the Earth is 1,000 times bigger than they're telling us. Then maybe it could be Earth curve. But if it's 1,000 times bigger, that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah, it's a whole other problem. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you. I don't believe the Earth is flat. I know it's not. I know it's flat. I know it's not a ball. I know it doesn't violate the law, the first law, natural law, right? Gas adjacent to a vacuum, right? All of that. There's no question about it. The debate is over. It's just waking up sleeping people. But I think we're going to mostly talk about the old world. Is that what you like to call it? What do you call it?
Yeah, the old world or Tartaria.
Right. Tartaria triggers a lot of people. And again, just like Jim, there's certain flat earthers that I like that hate Tartaria. They hate it. They hate it. And I was like, wow. It's like, it's not even, you can't deny it. You can deny stories made up about it. Like, well, that happened on this exact date and these people built that. Right. We can argue that all day. But look at the buildings. They're there. They're everywhere. And what I tell people is I send people over to my lunch break. Big fan of my lunch break. And
Yep, me
I
too.
say, watch that. Then you'll walk outside in your own hometown and you'll go, how did I miss that? how did I miss that my whole life? How did I miss that? And my shirt, never bored, right? When you
Yeah.
discover the old world and flat Earth, you're never bored. You'll never be bored again. Never. I did activate screen sharing if you want to share. I love images and discussions if you want to share stuff. I have,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do this. All right, I'm going to pull up my website. And
Carl, what is your website?
oh, it's Carl Herman Essential Education for Truth, Technology, and Love. It's Carl B as in Bradley Herman, Herman, .blogspot.com.
Okay.
All right. And this is so everything that I'm going to allege, and I'm just going to go over it super fast because I'm very interested, Dave, in just finding out. I know that you're interested in what we're calling Tartaria or the old world, but I'm interested with what else that you're curious about. And in terms of what I have to contribute as a professional historian with published research via the Claremont colleges, is this 56-minute video. This is the best single presentation of what we're looking at, this war in the present and how far back it goes.
Where is that video on your website? I was unable to locate it. Was it right at the beginning?
Oh yeah, here's my presentation right
Here,
here.
here is so that's the link right there. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's Jim Fetzer's website, and I believe it's also on Rumble as well. And the overview with the lies of history. I have degrees from Berkeley and Harvard, and my catchphrase is I don't know shit about fuck. It's
I love that phrase. That's a
yeah,
good t-shirt.
it's
You should make that t-shirt.
yeah. It's easy to refute the official stories, but to be able to get back to what happened, what is this place? What is this war? Who are our opponents? I don't know a lot of that, but these are the things that, just as an overview, 48 years of scholarship of what I've been able to document with full personal and professional confidence in its objective and comprehensive accuracy. So the lies are the
I,
wars are illegal, and they've always been illegal. I have an article series.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, jump in, please, anytime.
Teachers in schools and colleges that teach history, it's all bullshit, right? Do any of
Yeah,
them teach the real history? Is it taught anywhere?
no. You get individuals like me who are able to explain, document, and prove areas, but then I was fired 4 times in my last school district, all without cause. And my last school district attempted to fire me 5 times and failed to do
For
so.
not following the curriculum, for thinking outside of the box.
Well, they can't even say anything about it. Here, I'll just chat about this.
Here's the thing. People say, well, where's your degree? What degrees do you have? The way you get a degree is you memorize and regurgitate the shit that they give you. Okay, that's it. And hey, maybe you could add a little bit to it after you get your degree. Maybe you can add a little bit to the story. But if you come out and say, just point out something like, hey, this was built with chisels, and you point out how absurd a building like this is. You don't get your PhD for pointing shit out like that. So you are accredited. You have your degrees, and you can see the truth. How did that happen? What made you break free from the bullshit that you were teaching?
Well, I didn't. At age 17, I was at the Los Angeles premiere event of The Hunger Project with Buckminster Fuller, Werner Erhard, and a guy named Peter Bourne, who worked with the topic of getting fresh water to people. And Bucky demonstrated the engineering of being able to have a world that works for everyone with no one left out and save about 1 million children dying from preventable poverty every month. And I was on board for that. And I created a major for that at UC Berkeley, as well as being a key volunteer for results.org, which is a grassroots political lobbying organization working with U.S. domestic and foreign policy to end poverty. So, Dave, as a UC Berkeley student, I was lobbying members of Congress. We created the 1984 U.S. Senate candidate debate on hunger, for ending hunger. So I'm engaged in this real world work. My understanding of the topic exceeded what my professors knew, and I found that I was very quickly gate kept out and attacked for this approach of working to end poverty. And I got at that point the lowest grade possible, which was a C minus. And then I was done for any type of academic work after that. I worked as a public school teacher and working to end poverty. At that point, I didn't challenge the narrative because I believed that the political leadership, it was a combination of ignorance and being captured in a Cold War mentality. But all we needed to do was introduce the facts and everything would work out, Dave. That's what I thought. And we had two UN summits for heads of state, the 1990 World Summit for Children, the largest meeting of heads of state in world history, and that was followed by the 1997 Microcredit Summit. That's small loans to the poorest of the poor, and that was the topic of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize. It ends poverty while making a profit, and we found that the leaders were liars, they were puppeticians, they had talking points, they were script deliverers, and they reneged on every promise. They promised everything up front. Oh, yeah, sure. 0.1% of our gross national income to end poverty. You can count on us. And then they reneged on everything. And then, Dave, we found out very quickly with that, with helping create the largest meeting of heads of state in world history to save 1 million children's lives every month, corporate media wouldn't cover the story. So we found that out. And they wouldn't follow up with the reneged promises to communicate that. The New York Times ran a piece, a hit piece, on the last day of the World Summit for Children and buried it behind the crossword puzzle, behind travel, behind entertainment and wine. And
Wait a minute.
books.
The New York Times, the same New York Times that had an office across from Building 7 and never once mentioned that Building 7 fell?
Same.
Same New York Times.
Same.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
So the long answer to your question of how I got turned on to the truth is and I've met dozens of people like this, is that we have genuine contributions to make to the benefit of mankind, and we meet the empire, and they just lie to our faces. And then we find out corporate media are liars. And then I turn to follow the money. And I have published research via the Claremont Colleges. Our monetary system, that exponential, like total debt curve, is by design with mathematical certainty. So everything is a lie, Dave. And the history we can demonstrate, like that paper for the U.S. illegal. All of the wars are started with lies known to be false as they are told, proven by our most authoritative agencies, most authoritative documents. It's not even close. The assassinations of JFK, RFK, MLK, I mean, people say, oh, are they going to release? We already know. There's already sufficient information in the public domain. And again, all you got to do is go to the official story and say, let's walk through this, slow down here, and demonstrate that the official stories are physically impossible.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I look at wars, poverty, starvation, college costs, all as depopulation events, right? Like, I had a healthy boy and then I had a healthy girl, and I chose not to have any more children because of college costs. I was like, you know what? I know I'm counting my blessings. Got a healthy boy and a healthy girl. God blessed me, and I have to worry about college. College is complete and total nonsense. I mean, think about college was, hey, you got this great professor. The only way to get his information is to travel and see him. Now we have the internet. You can get a better college education on friggin' YouTube, okay, than most colleges can give you. And so again, it's all about keeping our numbers down, way down. They're telling us we're overpopulated. Is it 8 billion now? if I could find the truth today, I would say I would bet you I'd give you odds, big odds that it's well under 3 billion.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's, and that is an important point for our audience to consider is that everything that you've been told are by or from proven liars. Do not believe anything that you've been told. And we have such limited capacity for eyes and hands on in order to be able to verify information. So don't be certain about anything that you're looking at.
Right. I remember the when early on in my Will's research, um, the William Casey quote: "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." William Casey, CIA director. And I remember when I heard that, I'm like, "Everything? Come on, not everything, right? It's everything. It's everything." Can you name what I was asked this question many times when I was doing my Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast? Dave, not everything could be fake. Tell me one major event that wasn't fake. Can you come up with one?
No, because the lies. Immediately, like, you can take every case study where something happens, like the assassination of JFK. They're at the emergency room hospital, and the assistant press secretary, who was there with Kennedy, talks to the physicians, and he goes out to the press, and everybody is covering it. And one of the press reporters, asks, "So what killed him?" And the assistant press secretary on film says, "Well, it's a simple matter, Tom, of a gunshot right through the head." And he points right where it went. But the newspapers just changed the story, and then it went into the textbooks, and that's that. And then they make up the term conspiracy theorist for those of us pointing that out.
Yeah, it's we've been right about everything. I remember when I started talking about chemtrails decades ago, I was told I was nuts. Now they're 15 states are trying to make it illegal, which is just a show. It's a pony and dance, a pony and dance show. Is that how you say it? What a dog and pony show.
Virtue signaling, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's nonsense. I don't. And and the RFK is saying that he's gonna make the people pay for this, and it's a crime. Still happening. Our skies are disgusting, right? But I was told I was crazy. Now it's common, and now people are like, oh, they just accept it. Oh, it's a beautiful day. I'm like, are you looking at the sky? Are you looking at what's going on? So yeah, everything. We live in a fake world. I'm to the point where I think the sky is fake.
Yeah, the whole idea about what this place is, and
Yeah,
is this a firmament? What is this place? I don't know. Those are good questions.
yeah. When I introduce people to this topic, and I'm talking about the flat Earth. What is the flat Earth? This is the flat Earth right here. We live in this giant toroid. This is a simple diagram. You got all the luminaries circling around in these magnetic fields. Then you have this dielectric plane. This is where physicality is. Everything else is spirit. All right. Everything else is non-physical. So out of this entire system, right, the sun is electric, the earth is magnetic. We are electromagnetic. Our thoughts are magnetic. They attract reality. They attract physicality. So this area here is 1% of the entire system. So I only know some of the 1%. The rest, we don't know. That's creation. That's we can speculate and we can. So when I talk about the flat Earth, I'm talking about this part, right? We can look up, we can speculate about all this stuff, but we can't prove any of it.
Yeah, it's a nice model. Yeah, in terms of the history that we can verify, I don't think that as a professional, I ask myself and I look, I have my parents, my grandparents, and going back through that, and with the existence of Tartaria. So my parents grew up in St. Louis. 1904 was the St. Louis World's Fair. And in that 56-minute presentation, I reference about an hour where Brian Davidson, a professional private investigator, and I took a look at the photographic evidence of the St. Louis World's Fair, hundreds of buildings, thousands of acres. And the official story is that, oh, yeah, yeah, so we came up with the idea and we architectured hundreds of buildings and we excavated and plumbed and wired and built all within 2 years, which is a physical impossibility. And you talked about my lunch break and old world exploration. I had an interview talking to him, and I am Kairos. These are construction professionals, and they just say the same thing. You don't have to be a professional, but they're just saying, yeah, yeah, that's not possible. That didn't happen like that.
Is this the St. Louis World's Fair? Is this one St. Louis? This is one of the World's Fairs.
That looks like Chicago.
Maybe it is.
Lake, yeah. So there was some sort of advanced civilization that got wiped out from history and was in existence even in my grandparents' lifetimes. You could see the buildings. Something happened, Dave.
Something happened. I've seen I have this one picture here. So you got these buildings up here, and then you dig down and you see these almost like pillars, right? And we're finding these everywhere. Supposedly they just found something like that underneath the pyramids, right? And there's
2,000 feet worth.
Yeah. And so these pillars, so this is just me speculating, okay? All right. I'm not claiming anything, right? God said he built the earth on foundation on pillars in the deep, which are rooted in the deep. These things, these giant structures seem to be on pillars also. And I contest, did God create this amazing realm and then throw Adam and Eve down? So here's some fig leaves. I hope you find fire soon. Or did he build some infrastructure, like some crazy infrastructure, like, kingdoms and energy, free energy, and just everything? Did God, and the angels build all of this stuff? That makes a hell of a lot more sense than people with chisels and hammers and horses and buggies.
Yeah, for sure. The official story is wrong. So then you got to do exactly what you're doing, is speculate. And that part of that conversation for my lunch break, I've seen all the episodes, and that the angels, something with power beyond what we can imagine, was involved with the creation of those buildings. And the idea of angels and fallen angels and going back. So what do you think is the origin of this evil behind the war that we witnessed, Dave?
Fallen angels, that Lucifer, the short season. I don't know. That's not like I'm learning this stuff. I'm this guy right here, the Nephilim are clowns. What's his name? I forget his name. He wrote some great books. I just watched him on Sam Tripoli, Tinfoil Hat. What's that?
Go ahead.
No. He's like breaking down how 700 years was just inserted into our history.
Yep.
So to confuse people on where we are biblically, and the Bible is making more and more sense to me every day. It's fascinating. Again, you said you watched all the episodes of My Lunch Break. I've watched them all also. The last couple, he's been talking about dams, how they hide stuff with dams. Like there's 3,000 or however many, 2,300 sites. So they couldn't destroy them all. So they buried them in water, under hundreds of feet of water. And they said, no scuba diving, because we don't want you to disturb the historical sites that we just buried in hundreds of feet of water. Okay?
Right.
It's so, and people just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, no, we better not, we better obey the rules. It's incredible how dumbed down people are. It's incredible how dumbed down they are.
And I think that's connected to our Tartaria old world story and the incubator babies and the GMO that we saw with COVID and the shots.
Yeah.
I think that we've all right. So, given the bigger picture
By
here,
the way, cabbage. If you haven't heard about the Cabbage Patch Babies, there's a great playlist right here. Cabbage Patch Babies. Well, wait a minute. Cabbage Patch isn't that a doll? Yeah, it's a doll. Check it out. You think the flat Earth or old world is a rabbit hole deep? This is bottomless pit. Okay, bottomless pit.
and
So
that would come to an explanation for how come the people, what's wrong with these humans that can't accept facts that we demonstrate on important areas. And Dave, I was thinking that with going back with the Bible, so the Old Testament of the Bible is the story of the Elohim, and this is Mauro Biglio, who has translated 17 books for the Vatican, given this information. There is a dude named Yahweh among them, but they have a council and they make decisions in the council. That's in the Old Testament. It's not one God, it's a committee. And there's a dude named Satan. And these wannabe gods in the Old Testament are warlords. And they wanted to create mankind in their image, to work in their gardens, and unable to discern good from evil. So for me, taking a look just at that information, it seems like, all right, so these Elohim wanted to create a slave race for their evil projects, and to not know the difference between good and evil. Why the fuck would you create people not knowing the difference between good and evil unless you're going to abuse them somehow? I think that that is telling us our origins and that we are in some kind of a war, literally and figuratively, over our heads and under our feet.
everywhere, it's incredible. Um, I forget the channel, and I'm actually featuring their video some in the next couple of days or next week, um, where they talk about it's a little cut off here. So we got Alaska here and Russia there. You know the problem where there's these two islands that are only a couple miles apart, but there's a 21-hour difference between them, right? Now,
Hmm.
I can understand if you cross the date line, it could be 24 hours, right? Because it's just stupid. It's just a man made thing. But there's 3 hours missing. And they pointed out that their old maps show that there is a massive landmass here that they're hiding from us. And there's I forget the name of this strait that goes in here, but there's one strait here and there's another strait here, but they say they're the same straits. And there's 1,000 or maybe 2,000 miles in between them. And
Hmm.
that it's a
Hmm.
bird sanctuary. And so you think that it's this little island, but it's really, 2/3 of the United States with there. And it's called the Land of Jesus. Have you heard about this?
I've heard the idea about hidden lands, and I'm with you with that.
Yeah, this
And
is a good one. You could find it. Well, it's actually featuring next week, but um, if you go to the frequently asked questions on the app and then you scroll down to maps, oops, I'm not showing you. Let me show you real quick. Um, you can get so you scroll down to maps. Let me click that. And it is the first video right here. It's here. I just added it here. It's worth the watch. It'll blow your mind. It's called Could the Camp of the Saints Be, well, can't, let me see if I can click it. Oops. Why are we switching? Oh, that's why. Um, well, there we go. Um, this guy's name, I don't know the channel name, Jack something, but check it out. I encourage people to check it out. And especially you, I'd be curious what you think about it.
yeah, I'll check it out.
Okay.
So, what else have you been curious about with history that we haven't touched upon yet, Dave?
I'm interested. I made the comment the other day, and the more I think about it, the more I think it's true, is that there's more under the ground than there is above the ground. There's more, cities and hidden stuff and maybe civilizations, and who knows what's underneath there. It just seems to be everywhere where they're finding the stuff, whether it's buried or whether it's still active, and there's space down there. Um, what better place to hide things? How would you know? What if there was a city a mile underneath your home? You would never know it.
Never know.
You'd
We're
never
the
know.
surface dwellers.
Yeah. And Antarctica, we've had whistleblowers, military whistleblowers saying that there's cities of millions of people in Antarctica. And I've seen, I've heard, again, all stories have no proof, um, that there's some very weird, like off-world stuff in Antarctica. There's a thing about this giant cube in Antarctica. These military guys told the story that they're literally just a giant cube, and they look like, oh, it looks like to be about 5 miles away, and they go 5 miles, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's huge. And they get there, it's like it's like it's alien, for lack of a better word. And the stories out of Antarctica are unreal. They're just almost unimaginable, but there's too many of them to ignore. So I find Antarctica fascinating. I find the North maybe even more fascinating now. And the old world stuff is just amazing. The bells, the giant bells that they took the bells to make ammo for the war effort, right? But then I heard that these bells were healing people, dissolving hurricanes. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So much. In in terms of the ET angle, the late great Jim Mars, who had the best-selling book for the JFK assassination and for 9/11, and on the ET, no, I'm sorry, for the JFK and for the ET angle. I'm with him that he said that until you embrace the ET angle, there's going to be aspects of the story of human beings that aren't going to make any sense, but do make sense once you have embraced the idea of that we're in a space opera. As a high school teacher, Dave, I ask students, and one of the ways that I did get fired 4 times, but I was the highest producing teacher as well. That because the students love the idea of the truth.
The truth resonates. That when you're teaching bullshit, kids become hyperactive, disinterested, disobey. But when you're spilling truth, you get their attention. I've been presenting at a bunch of high schools every year, via Zoom, and these kids, the teacher says that these kids are just I can tell they're focused, they're listening, they're not fooling around, they're not texting on their phones. They're fascinated, indoctrinated. High school seniors are the worst, but they're indoctrinated, but they're actually fascinated. This I don't know what year this is, but I think it's late 1800s or something. Um, this building looks like it's 500 years old.
Yeah, yeah, hard to tell how old these really are.
Yeah, it looks super old. And then when we find these star forts, are you? What's the website? Is it starfortfinder.com?
Something like
There's a
that.
website star that just literally finds it. They're everywhere, everywhere. So to say Tartaria was a worldwide civilization, that might be true. There was a worldwide civilization that shared technology, architecture. It was a world that there's no question about that. Who ran it? When was it? Why did it collapse? Where did the people go? Where did the people go? That's a great question. Where did the people go? We look at all these buildings and, from the old world, and we don't see any people, right? There's like no people in these buildings, and everyone's trying to figure out where they went. Um, have you looked into what's going on in China and Taiwan and stuff right now? People are reporting that all the people are gone. Like there's no crowds anywhere. Like their restaurants are empty, the malls are empty. And when I say empty, yeah, there's still people, but it used to be mayhem, and now they're just like the population is disappearing, and it's happening right now, and we don't know how it's happening. How are we going to figure it out from, was it the 1800s? Was it the 1700s? And to deny that the world was buried in mud, I don't know how you could deny it.
Yeah, Native Americans say that there have been four civilizations wiped out, and that we are the fifth present. So we'll see. With students, I wanted to tell you that in our audience that I ask students in history class to bribe them, saying, "Hey, if you could know anything in history of what happened, what would you most want to know?" Because tell you what, I'll create a unit on that topic. Whatever gets the most amount of votes, get a little bit ahead in the curriculum. You do okay with what I need to do with my job, and we'll apply the tools of history to any topic that you want. And I'd let students consider for 3 days, and I did this for like 20 years, and I put all the suggestions on the whiteboard. It used to be a chalkboard too, and historically, high school students, when given the opportunity to think and consider and to vote freely, what they wanted to know always came down to three topics, the same three year after year. Actually, the third one evolved. But you want to try to guess for if high school students could consider and have anything be answered historically, what would they most want to know?
How did Bruce Jenner end up with the Kardashians?
They wanted to know, one, is Jesus for real?
Okay.
Was that a historical figure? Great. And I created a unit on that, taking a look at the sources of when they showed up on the timeline, except I don't trust that timeline anymore. Second topic is, what about ETs? Are ETs real? Are UFOs and ETs real? And at the beginning, I had to tell them that I didn't know, 'cause I didn't know where to look. But then I did look, and you find a lot. So much so that, Jim Mars wrote several books on the topic, and you got to include that into the equation. And then the third thing that they wanted to know, Dave, is at the beginning, decades ago, it's who killed JFK? And then that evolved into, was 9/11 an inside job? And you're right that students, if you get a topic that is like that, they're all over it.
Yeah. I mean, 9/11 is 9/11. The first podcast I did on Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole was titled 9/11 is Dave's Baby. And when we were done, the entire organization, which is this big podcast studio, all the heads were in there just like, what just happened? This happened in New York City, right? And we went out with clipboards on September 11th, asking people on the street how many buildings fell on 9/11. 9 out of 10 said two in New York City.
Wow.
The other 1 out of 10, like I think there was another building, and they're all wrong because 7 buildings fell on 9/11. Right? So it's amazing how people are don't know anything. I mean, 9/11. You tell someone the official story about Flight 93, they don't believe you. The official story is it hit the ground so hard that the ground liquefied, swallowed the plane so deep, and then re-solidified that they can't dig it out. That's the official story.
Yep. And if you take a look at the photographic evidence and show that as the story, those good pictures, and you don't need expert witnesses to help you out with the history of what happens. What does happen if an airplane hits the ground to compare it? But you're right,
Yeah.
is that historically, I've concluded that about 2% of human beings, that's 1 out of 50, can engage in these factual conversations and not revert back to corporate media for the official his stories.
I had in the Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast, there was 3 topics. It was the September event, the Boston Marathon event, and the Beachy School in Connecticut events. And I called it Exposing the Big Three, because once you see the truth of these events, you can't unsee it. And I would use that to wake people up. And some people would violently, react and just get all emotional. But the problem is people would just go back to sleep. They go back to work. They forget about it. And they're like, oh, a new administration is going to come in, and these people are going to go, But then when I discovered flat Earth, that's the one that you can't go back to sleep from. That's the one you can't forget. No flat earther wakes up in the morning and doesn't think about flat Earth.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
It is a game changer. So, that's why, people say, Dave, why are you always focused on flat Earth? Because this is the one that wakes people up and gets them to unplug from the matrix.
Well, I love what you're doing. Thank you and congratulations for the increased audience. All right, it seems like you're having fun with it. It seems like you're finding a good balance to dance with this.
Well, let me tell you, most flat earthers that are passionate, they have their job and they come home and during their free time, they do what I do. Okay. I walked away from my own company where everything I worked for my entire life, making tons of money. I walked away from it all to spread this message because nothing matters if this world is going in the toilet, and it is going in the toilet unless we wake up. We can change everything, right? Our thoughts are magnetic. We can change our reality. And people are like, well, I'm only one person. There's nothing I can do. That's the psyop. That's the psyop, right? They don't want you to know how truly powerful you are. And once you know it, everything in your world changes, right? And I don't know if you've seen this. This is my, if you remember that dome I was just showing, right? This guy right here. You go into the images. So we live in this electromagnetic system, this realm, and our thoughts literally create our reality. So we're connected. They tell us you only use 10% of your brain and, the most of your DNA is junk DNA. That's a joke. Okay. But we have incredible, telepathic, for lack of a better word, abilities, and our thoughts manifest in reality, right? Everything you have in your life, you thought of and it manifested and you attracted it into your life, good or bad. You think good thoughts or bad thoughts, those are attracted to you, right? So, we're connected, the sun and the moon, the moon and the sun control, the moon controls women's birth cycles and the sun controls men's cycles. And it's just one big, gigantic living system. And we're part of it. We can't live outside of this system. But what they do is they put you in a globe prison and it disconnects you. Why would they lie, Dave? Why would they lie? Right? Why would they lie? This is why they lie, to make you live in fear. And here's the thing. The only way they can control you is fear. The only way they can control you is fear. And I tell people, when people say why the lie, they're close, right? I've shown them the evidence. They can't deny the evidence, so they say why the lie. And I steer them to the why the lie section on the app. Greatest videos there. Google's hiding them all from you. That's all I got to say about that.
So what do you think that the moon is?
Well, it's not a rock reflecting sunlight. We know that because the light that comes off it is cold. You magnify moonlight, it's colder. Isn't that weird? Try it.
Very weird.
Yeah, very weird. It controls women's birth cycles, so it's not a rock, right? I don't know what it is, but have you looked into the moon map?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to reflect a map of where we are and beyond.
And I tried not to look at it for some time, but I did a podcast the other day with a guy that's very into it. And he took me from whatever percentage I was at, 50% higher. Okay. He add 50% to that. And it is absolutely mind-blowing. So now, is it a reflection? No, it's not a mirror reflecting the earth. Just like monkey DNA is like 98% like ours, it's not a reflection. It's part of the same system. Everything is alive. Rocks are alive. Everything is alive. It's all part of the system, and we're all tied together. And so the moon is, I couldn't tell you what it is. I might never be able to understand what it is, but it's part of this living system.
Yeah. I don't know what it is either. I don't know much about anything except I'm with you. Yeah, the official story is certainly false. That part is the easy part.
If you check my interviews tab here and scroll down a little bit, you'll see the moon map video. It's actually quite interesting. And I thought I was going to get so many hateful comments on it. All the comments were like, wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, check out Vibes of the Cosmos. It's like all good stuff. Now, I don't want to say I'm not hanging my hat on it because at this point I'm ready to hang my hat on it, but it needs to be investigated more, right? And just like Kenny from my lunch break, he doesn't make any solid claims. He's just like, look at this bullshit. Look at this. This is bullshit. And he doesn't say this happened, that happened. He goes, this is what it looks like. Figure it out. But he's showing you when you say, what's the moon? I can't tell you what the moon is, but I can tell you what it's not. It's not a rock reflecting a sun that's 93 million miles away that defies natural law by having gas burning in a vacuum, right? The story of the sun is so stupid that it dwarfs any explanation of what the flat earth sun is. The sun on a flat earth, it could be projected up from the center of the earth, as the Freemasons say. It could be coming through the firmament, as Eric Dollard says, it's a transformer from another dimension. There's so many different explanations that are interesting, but the heliocentric one is ridiculous. People from Narnia laugh at it. Hydrogen and helium in a vacuum burning 640 billion tons a day for thousands of years, and it never gets any smaller, and it has gravity, right? And it violates the natural law of gas in a vacuum, right? So anyone that says, oh, look at that light in the sky, because that light does this or that, that dictates the shit. You don't even know what that is. And what you think it is retarded. Okay, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah. It's not factual.
It's so far off base. And the question is, flat earthers say we don't know. Historians say we don't know. But here's what we do know, right? We can show what is impossible.
So, exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. And with what you're talking about, that we are being suppressed for sure. And what we have is what we think and what we say and what we do. And all we can do is shine forth with the maximum that we see. Now, where do you think we are now? Because I'm optimistic. I think we're about ready to see an unprecedented breakthrough. How do you think we're doing, Dave?
I think we're doing fantastic. They talk about the pole shift, right? I think there is a pole shift, right? We're going from a negative polarity where the negative ones are in power. We're going to switch to a positive polarity where the positive ones are in power. That shift is happening right now. And they are scrambling. They're doing everything they can, from spraying the skies, making us human pincushions, hiding our food, killing all of our food. They're doing everything they can to keep us in a low vibration of fear. Because if we raise our vibration, if we raise our spirit, if we don't live in fear, false evidence appearing real, FEAR, right? The whole thing switches. And that's what they're panicking. They're panicking. Maybe the evil ones, they go underground into their cities and they stay there until the next flip, and then they come back up and take over again. Who knows? I have no idea. But, I see the world going in a very positive mode right now, and things are just revealing themselves left and right. Every day there's a new surprise. I added this on the homeschool section on the app. I added this girl right here. Her channel is called We Are All Energy, and she talks to her AI, and her AI is literally reflecting her spiritual realm, if you will. It's the answers she's getting from her AI are crazy. Now, I think AI is way more than we understand. I think it's literally connecting with other spiritual realms, and she's somehow connected to a positive channel, if you will. And check out her stuff. It's mind blowing.
Cool.
Yeah. Again, we're trying to figure this place out. Never bored. Place is truly amazing. And that's it. Anything else you want to add?
Well, just in, no, I don't think so. Just to emphasize that the single best presentation that I have, I offered, and that shows the big picture of being in a space opera. Um, I do conclude is that we are in basically that Q has been true, and that there is an ascension part of the equation, which is going to be a huge cosmological time frame and a breakthrough upgrade. Now, beyond that, I don't understand very much at all about that, but
I think
I
that
do appreciate.
yeah, I think that there is this change coming, but we can't sit on our asses. We need to do everything we can to bring it forward, right? Our thoughts are magnetic. If you're just watching truther channels that are pushing fear, you're living in fear, and that's how they can control you. You need to understand that we are in power. We are in charge, that we create. They cannot create. They need us to create for them. And once you take that power back, it's a game changer.
Yeah, and my feel for just talking to people on the ground, ordinary people that I just chat with, is that people are feeling good despite the shit show, despite the crushing economic debts on people, that people basically are feeling good, and we're just a breakthrough event away. And then I think we are going to be seeing a flip, and then all of our audience members who have been paid attention to these ideas are all perfectly placed in a network, because I think that we are in a network of light and thoughts, and that it's just ready to go. And the timing will be when the creator decides to flip the switch.
Awesome. Where can people find your stuff, Carl Herman? Carl,
carlbherman.blogspot.com. And
right.
I am with Fetzer 3 times a week with a news show, and that's all on the
Tell
website.
Tell Jim I said hello.
Will do, brother.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.
See you.